What up, folks? For people who are coming in, feel free to say hello in the chat. I'd love to know who's here. We're just getting set up, listen to some chill vibes while I'm sending out these links and whatnot. Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome me, welcome you. Kelly, I'm emailing you this link right now to share. If you are on Facebook, if you're joining us from Facebook Live, please click the share button so hopefully the algorithm will trigger and invite some more people in. Let everybody know that you are here trying to get your life to stop committing racisms and whatnot. Send it to some people who you know need to be up in the spot. Send it to some people who would just enjoy being up in the spot. You don't send it to nobody shadily and be like, see, this is why you need to be up in here because you're racist. Don't do that. People don't tend to respond well to that. Oh, I just shared it twice to my story. Yeah, I just learned how to use Instagram stories. Don't judge me. Hey, what up? Hey, everybody. Y'all come on through. Come on through. Welcome, welcome one, welcome two, welcome me, welcome you. Hey, everybody. Oh, here go my story right here. Hey, look at that. Yeah, I'm definitely a boomer. Oh, I just shared it to my story 3 times. I don't be knowing what's going on Instagram stories. This ain't even no story. It's just a little short clip. I don't understand. The world is changing. It's passing me by. Delete. Uh-huh. Oh, did it? Oh, Lord. What was that? Who is this? Excuse me. I don't know you, sir. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Sorry, y'all. Somebody else's story was playing. Now it's my story time, baby. Don't be playing during my story. I'm the one telling the story here. Here we go. All right, we got it together. All right, we got people coming in. Feel free, drop your name in the chat so we can talk to y'all. Kiki, welcome you. Kelly coming through with the water so her spirit don't be ashy. You know, you got to drink your water, stay hydrated. Let's see. Just making sure we got everything running copacetically. Did you get the link, Kelly? Okay. And we are live on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube. All right. Close this. Hey there, Catherine, here to support Kelly. Okay, come on, Kelly support. Ain't it good to be supported, Kelly? Yeah, Kelly has been so bashful about being on the show. I'm just trying to hype her up. Come on, Kelly. Catherine is here to support you. She don't know who I am. She said she came for the Kelly. What up, Jessica?
Jessica.
Hey, Jess. Come on, Jess. She's here for the Kelly, too. See, I told you, Kelly, you got fans out there, girl. Give the people what they want. All right, I'm gonna fade out my vibes. Let me find our little run of show so we can get started. Yeah, I'm so excited about this episode. I've been telling Kelly, are we gonna have you on the show? It's gonna be such a good time. I love having conversations with Kelly. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna make sure all my fixings are done. All right. Okay, so I think we are ready to get started. Welcome everyone to the third episode of Take a Seat Race Talks Live. The mission of Take a Seat Race Talks is building allies who act in my interest in my absence. For folks who don't know, I am Remington Holt, and I'm the founder and CEO of Remington Holt Consulting. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion longitudinal strategist for schools. And so I help essentially help white schools to be less racist, which tends to be something that it looks like the world needs a lot of right now, especially here in these old United States. So we are here today with none other than the great Kelly Tabinski, BCBA, LBA. You know, she had to make sure we got all her letters after her name so that people know to put some respect on her name. And I want, if you are on Facebook, will you please share this out to your timeline? You can share it just like you do like a post or anything else that comes up in your news feed. If you click the share button down in the bottom right and just share it out, feel free to tag people. Let everybody know you're here and that we would love for them to join us. Last thing before I let Kelly talk, if you are in attendance today, just know that we do have a question and answer portion at the near the end. And so anything that catches your eye, catches your mind, anything you want to know more about, feel free to put it in the chat. I've actually got the ability to post questions on the screen, kind of like the comment you see down here at the bottom. So any questions that come up in the chat, we want to be able to answer those during our Q&A at the end. And I find it best if people catch their thoughts during so that we can remember to go back to them. So please interact in the chat. Let us know you're here to support. Catherine and Jess, they already said they are here for the Kelly, and I'm also here for the Kelly. So it's going to be great. It's going to have a great time. So, all right, without further ado, introduce yourself to the people.
Yeah, I'm Kelly Tobenski. I live in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I'm a BCBA, which is a board certified behavior analyst. The majority of what we do is working with younger kids with autism, but we also work with adults. We work with children without autism, just trying to help find them daily supports and live their life a little more independently. But there's a lot of facets of behavior. There's organizational behavior, where you look at the behavior of businesses and corporations and how they treat their employees. There's a whole branch of behavior that looks at littering and smoking cessation. So a lot of the focus that you'll hear about with ABA is the kids with autism. But we work with people. We work with people, anybody that behaves, we can work with. So we have a center in Murfreesboro, and then we do a lot of in-homes as well. We have social skills groups, we have one-on-one sessions, we have a day program, we have pre-K. So we try and kind of get to every area we can to help these kids out and these families and help support them. But that's pretty much what I do 90% of every day.
Yeah, man, like it's a mouthful to hear it all like back to back to back like that. For folks who don't know, my master's is in special education, and when I first started out, I was on the BCBA track, And so I took a lot of the initial classes in my master's, and I eventually realized that I didn't think that I would ever go into like one-on-one behavior analysis, but like I think having the background of behavior analysis is something that really sets me apart when I am doing the work that I'm doing, whether it was when I was in the classroom or even thinking about behavior change now in terms of race. Me and Kelly were just having a very enthralling conversation about how we could possibly put together a program that changes behavior around racism, bringing the BCBA, DEI together as if, maybe we can get every letter in the alphabet in there if we really need to. So we can figure that out too. So, what'd you say?
Got a spreadsheet started already. We're good.
Oh, good. Hey, good. Yeah, one thing about a BCBA is they love collecting some data, boy. I learned that quick too. Gotta have a mean spreadsheet game. Okay, so we are our regular agenda that we go through. We do our introduction, and then we do what is called the conversation. This is what everybody's here for. I've got some questions that are reflective of me and Kelly's relationship, like things that I feel like she and I have been through together or talked through together that I think it'd be really cool to highlight for white folks who are trying to learn more about finding their own voice in allyship. And so we're going to have this conversation, and then after maybe about 10 minutes before the show is over, we'll go into a Q&A, and then we'll wrap up, and that's it. So we'll only hopefully be here for about an hour, and it'll be cool. Not talk data to me. All right, I like it. I like it in the chat. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start out with question number one. So Kelly, we've known each other for a few years now and have worked together in like various capacities, like friendship, professional, we've done it all. And so like, I want to ask you, like, what do you find unique about our relationship compared to other relationships in your life? Like, and what, particularly as it pertains to race, like, how do you feel like race plays a role in our friendship and our relationship?
So we had what I would describe as the typical people that knew about behavior relationship, because we worked at a school together, right? That's how we met. Yeah. We worked in a public charter school. And so we got to know each other, I think, very professionally, and especially that setting. It was like very professional. Like that was the setting. So I feel like we both did that. Oh, behavior. Like, let me actually see if you know it. If I want to talk to you, because we know we all do that. I think in every profession, but behavior analysts can be pretty cocky. So we did that thing, and we approved of each other apparently, because we're talking now.
Right.
Remington. So I think we kind of gained that mutual respect really quick professionally, which I think just paved the way for that. And because you're so passionate about it, I think I didn't realize I was passionate about it, because I'm passionate about helping learners. And when I found out this is an area that I'm not doing anything in, or even aware of, how much more can I help my Black and brown learners, knowing what my knows? How many mistakes could I have avoided in the past? So I'm in a constant kind of state of knowledge, and like I don't read fiction anymore. Like, it's all nonfiction. I just want all the knowledge. So when I met you and we had that professional relationship, you were just another knowledge base for me that could help my learners. So I think the race talks really came in. They just flowed into it because we had that mutual respect. And we talked about this a little bit. I feel completely unqualified to be talking about this, first of all. But I know that you'll dig me out of tools and help me out. But right. I just don't know in what way I came to you that wasn't offensive. So I'm glad, however it happened, that it opened the door for more conversations. But at the time, I felt like coming to you like, hey, I have Black questions. I need a Black person. If I did to avoid that, like, insight would be great to that.
Yeah, I think this and like this is what I love about this platform is like it can only be as planned as it can be planned. Like I was thinking about this. I'm glad you asked the question the way you did because that is a good question to ask. Like, why was this not offensive? And I think maybe for me, so like with Kelly being a BCBA and at the point where she came to work at the school that I was at, I had just learned what a BCBA was. Like I was in the beginnings of my master's program, and I kept like when I heard that Kelly might be coming to our school, I kept saying, "Y'all not ready for the BCBA. Like the BCBA, they can do anything. They can change any behavior. They learn to control the behavior, switch it up. Boom, boom, boom. We gonna get there. Like y'all not ready." And so I think Kelly like really I think you really like gave me an anchor that I needed at that school because you came with something that I needed to know more about as well to serve my learners. Because like we were teaching, I think it's 97% black and brown kids in our school, in our school network. Black kids don't get BCBAs. Black kids in the city of Nashville, in Tennessee, in the South, that is rare that a school even knows enough about what a BCBA is to get a full time one and then like know what to do with it. And so I saw all of this possibility of bringing a better life to black and brown kids, and it may be the only time they ever get this opportunity. And so I think we kind of met in a place where it just synced together really well. I think you were wanting to learn. I don't know if you wanted to learn more for yourself at first or more for students at first, but we both needed the same things from each other and we couldn't produce on our own what the other person had.
Yeah.
And I think that mutual respect in the beginning was also key because I feel like it went from respect to trust pretty quickly because like we also had to finagle some things within the school structure to be able to serve children well because some of the leadership and things did not have a concept of how to treat black kids well and like to actually change behavior in a positive way. And so there were times where I would say, "Hey, Kelly, this is what we're currently doing. I know it goes against the principles of ABA. How can I switch this up?" And when Kelly would give me that, I would take it back to the classroom. And it was so successful that the relationships and kind of the results and the academic and the behavior of the kids, people were like, "Oh, where did you get that from?" I'm like, "Miss Tabinski." And so when the kids would ask me, I'm like, "Oh, well, you should go talk to Miss Tabinski." And I think, I don't know, it was just this very symbiotic relationship. It was cool. I liked it.
It was cool. I missed that.
Yeah, it was a good time. What? So, like, how do you feel like it expanded? I don't know when this happened. I would assume one day you probably called me and was like, "I've been thinking about what we talked about in the office the other day with this set of like black kids or black and brown experience. How does this translate to the world? What's it called? Generalizable? How is this generalizable to the world?"
Generalization.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it was most likely because I'm pretty blunt. That I came to you and said, like, "Hey, can you explain why this is racist to me?" Like,
That sounds familiar, actually.
just I have no idea, and I want to know. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That is, I could ask that to a lot of different people, but you explained it in a way, again, maybe because of the behavior background, that was logical and made sense to me. So that has to be there. One person has to be willing to listen, the other has to be willing to talk too. So
yeah, that's funny you bring that up because the first guest that I had on Take a Seat, her name is Chelsea, and she's a high school friend of mine, and she tells me this all the time in private, but she also said it on the show. But Chelsea is a white woman, but she's a queer white woman. And she said, like, you just have a lot, talking about me. She said, you have a lot more grace and willingness for white people than even I do as a white person. She's like, I don't know where you got it from, but like you will sit down and actually attempt to teach white people. And she's like, I can't do it. She's like, it just makes me mad. And so that's something that I've been like trying to press into more. And that's kind of where this platform came from. People keep telling me that I have a way of making it make sense. And so that's cool to hear from you that I was doing that even when I didn't know I was doing it. And look where it's brought us. So, all right, cool. I want to talk about also, and I guess this is like a changing of gears. So like, and I asked this to all of my guests on the show. So like in terms of psychology and human development, we hear about the process of socialization, like the way you grew up, the messages you received about life through your experiences, either implicit or explicit, and that kind of shapes you to the person that you are. In a similar vein, I like to flip this question a bit and ask my guests, like, what is your racialization story? What messages, implicit or explicit, did you receive about people who aren't white growing up, and how has that impacted your worldview?
That's a great question. It's the where to start that's hard, I grew up in Chicago. I think that's significant, or the suburbs at least. We moved throughout the suburbs as I was school age. I believe, and I can check my yearbook, but I believe my high school graduating class, not even graduating class, my high school of close to 1,200 kids had 2 people of color. We had we had a very large Hispanic population, but I think I had met and talked to 2 Black people in my high school, probably including the staff. And I know at least one of them was adopted by a white family. So I don't know how. I don't know if that counts.
All right. Well, all right. Go on. So one Black. No,
yeah, go I interacted with people, and I think moving down here, you realize how big of a culture shock it is just in general. The second question I got down here was, what church do you go to? Nobody would have ever asked me that up north. I wasn't ready for that question.
Really?
So I think things like race and politics, just in your everyday, don't come up as much as they do down here, just because people talk more a little bit down here. People are a little more apt to start a conversation with a stranger. So that was something that never came up a lot as I was growing up. I mean, I obviously knew what race was and I knew what different cultures was, but I never got explicitly talked to about it. I think my parents, I don't want to sound like a bad mouthing my parents, so I'm going to pre-phrase it with this. My parents are absolutely amazing. They're still married. They're wonderful. I have 2 sisters. They took very good care of us. But my dad was very much I'm going to make decisions for this family because that's who I'm responsible for. So you talked extensively about this and you use a lot better terminology than I do, but we were our own little unit and that's who we were worried about. And as a child, that made sense to me. When we were getting closing to vote age, my dad would say, you're voting for who I tell you to if you want to live in this house, because that's who I'm taking care of you. And in my head, it made sense. Like, yeah, I mean, he is paying for me to live here. And I certainly like what we have. So I wasn't really forced to think about politics really as a child. But my parents did a wonderful, amazing job of, we got a bunch of different church experiences. My dad was Catholic. My mom was Lutheran. We both went to both services, but they never forced us to go. So we got a lot of exposure to a lot of different things without having explicit talks about them. And I appreciated that. I appreciated being exposed to religion, but not forced to either make yay or nay, or which service am I going to. So I appreciated that exposure because I think my parents trusted my sisters and I to make a decision based on the morals that they raised us with. So I liked that. At the same time, I wasn't able to have explicit talks about race. So everything that I experienced about race was pretty much like the underwritten. And so I think, and I watched some of Chelsea's the last talk where she talks about good white people, and that's we're not racist. We don't say the N word. We don't tell you to go away. Like we don't do those explicit things that say racism. But we would like my parents will tell stories still to this day and go, oh, I was at the Kroger the other day and this black woman came up to me and she asked me if I wanted a coupon. And I said, yeah. And they finished the story and I'm like, did it matter that they were black? Like, that's what I got out of that story. And they're like, oh, well, I guess not. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird that you mentioned it. Like, you don't. So they'll still do those little things, but they'll, you know, hands down, we're not explicitly racist. So that was kind of the message I got before I went to college and met, you know, I was in a whole different water environment there. I know we're getting to the wet, but I wasn't really taught and I wasn't really exposed. So I kind of just took a back seat to my parents. And when I got out in the world, I at least had, I think, the foundation to where they had entrusted us with coming up with our own, you know, ways to believe in the world and what we wanted to be passionate about. I think they just entrusted that I would get that. And I did, I think, or I'm at least on that path. I don't know if that was planned, but I do want to say the ability to be exposed without being forced was really important for me.
Did you wonder where are the black people? Like I've been thinking about, that is one of my, when I walk into anywhere, that is one of my first questions is where are the black people or why is everyone here white? So like, were you saying you did not wonder why everyone around me looks like me?
The only thing I would say is why are there so many black people here? If I walked into a room with more black people than I was used to, I would have definitely noticed that, but not if it was just one or two. Nope.
That's interesting. I feel, and you know, like I feel like the way that this has come up a lot recently is like parents recognizing that black parents of black children have to have the race talk with their kids very early, whereas white parents don't ever have the talk. You know, and it's just, I don't know. I just think it's one of those things that when we're thinking about how we're racialized, I think, and as our society becomes more familiar with mental health, I feel like there are some similarities here with trauma. I think there are a lot of people who maybe would have grown up in your type of setting, suburban, white family, everything was taken care of, like we're working hard, we're our little unit, and would say, I had a pretty non-traumatic childhood. But like the thing about trauma is like you don't always recognize it when you're in it. And so like I just wonder how you not being around people of color, how that played out subconsciously or consciously later on. Or do you feel like it did?
I distinctly remember really racist things I said when I was a kid, but I didn't think they were racist. And like down, I'm trying to think of an example, like down to things where, and I was just repeating what I'd heard, you know, like not explicitly, you know, N-word by any means, but like, oh, there's a lot of shootings. I mean, Chicago and the shootings, you're constantly hearing non-data based things. But it was, oh, all the shootings, it's all these black people shooting each other. And I would repeat that at school. Like if I heard somebody talking about a shooting, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's just the black people shooting each other. And I don't even know, like looking back, I wasn't interested in the politics at that point. I wasn't like looking for a conversation. I don't know if that was just what I had at that moment to socialize. I don't know, but like that was like middle school, high school. And I don't know why I said those things, but when I started to get into this mindset of like, I have to explore what my racism is, like, I would remember that. I'm like, God, that's awful. Like, that's awful.
Yeah.
I was totally cool with it at the time, but I really didn't think about it too much. It was just something I said. But it was bad enough that I can remember it now. So
would you say you elected into your explicit racialization? Like, it sounds to me like you had implicit racialization because of what your parents were saying, or even just the absence of black people sends a message, you know? So, like, we can't, it's just like an implicit bias. We're not looking for it, but it happened. So now that you're saying, like, now that I'm on the path, or when I decided to get on the path, that really stands out to me because I didn't get to decide. Like, it was forced upon me to learn that I was black. You know, it was when I didn't get the same, like, and I mean, I go back to high school, like, because maybe it's because it's the most recent, but in high school, me and my cousin who were ranked number 3 and number 4 in our senior class at the time. I wanted to run for senior class president, and she wanted to run for vice president. And they called us to the office and told us we couldn't because the offices have to alternate by race. And so, like, I did not get to, like, I was going through life in a way that I thought was normal. And then somebody literally stopped me in the hallway and said, "You can't do that because you're black," you know? Like, and it wasn't those words, but I did not elect into racialization. And that's just something that stands out to me about, you know, I think I assumed that you were going to mention some occurrence before you went to college about, like, you're electing into racialization. I don't know if I have anywhere to put that. So, like, that a white person can make it 18 years and then be like, "Oh, there's black people. I wonder what that's about." I just don't know what to say about. I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, and still, I mean, even I'm gonna say a good 10 years after high school, like into my early 30s, I still didn't like choose to think about race. Like, that was still a choice I made later in my life. Like, it's 100%. I don't have to think about race. I don't. Never. I don't. I don't think I do. So I have
Why?
to myself.
Why do you personally, like, why does this matter to you?
Why does this matter to me? I make a big case for, here's an example I think will clarify. When you go into this field, you're technically like a medical professional. You can bill insurance for certain services, right?
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the kids we get from lower income or under the poverty line, I think technically, and then of a lot of our clients that are of color are kids that are on TennCare, which is
Okay.
The system you go on if you're lower income in the state. Every state has one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I did the work because I thought it was just what you did to become somebody that can bill TennCare, which it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work and auditing and probably a little bit of money here and there. But to me, that was 100% worth my time because now I'm serving all these kids that don't typically get services like you said in the beginning. They may not ever see or know what a BCBA is. Why would you not accept TennCare? Like, and some professionals will say, "Oh, well, TennCare doesn't pay enough." I don't care. There's no way. I'm a horrible business person. I say it all the time. I would do it for free, but if these kids aren't getting services, the only way they're going to get it is if I connect through them with TennCare. And there's other professionals in this area that go, I'm not doing, I didn't do that whole TennCare thing. It was too much time. I'm like, well, good luck serving the white elite rich kids. Like, they don't need ABA. Like, they do need ABA, but it's just not accessible to you. You go to the way far other end. I'm not going to accept the lower income kids. So there's half the population that I'm no longer working with. Now we're only educating the elite. And that's ridiculous in my mind. So if I needed to become passionate about this because I need to serve that population. And I can't go into a home and not know anything about culture, especially when I'm teaching a kid how to live in their house. Like, that's part of what we do. How do you go about your everyday? And if I'm not aware of and listening to the family about their culture, and short of that, just accepting their insurance, then there's no way I'm going to reach the amount of learners that I want to reach in my life. So I am not educating the elites only. That's why a lot of companies do, and every company does their own thing, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. But what we've chosen to do is we work with anybody. Some people will only work with kids under 5, and we've had to become specialized in order to do that. But to be able to say, yes, we'll work with your 35-year-old who, hasn't qualified or for whatever reason before now, that's great. To be able to say, yes, I'll work with your son who you couldn't have afforded it any other way but to have TennCare pay me. Yes, absolutely. So I just want to break down any barrier that there is of a learner getting access to our services. And so me just becoming as fluent as possible on this. Again, I don't claim to be an expert by any means. I don't know if that exists, but that was just a necessary thing.
We're gonna go to the next question, but something that I feel like has come up now, and I don't know if I know the answer to, is like, I'm stuck on this why. Like, you're from the description of your background, it sounds like you are a white woman that could have just easily been like, all right, this is fine. Let's do the elite, no TennCare, whatever. And so, like, I want to come back to that at some point. And I think it's a good, I think there'll be a good segue for after this next question where we watch the clip. But, like, it seems like your water was all white and, it worked out just fine for you. And then somewhere along the way, you developed a desire to care about something other than just what worked for you. And I think that was one of the draws when I worked with you. Like, it was uncommon for a white woman in the space that we were in to be trying to fight justly for Black and brown kids that you had no affiliation with. Like, we had a lot of, I would probably say majority white teachers, and your approach to being at this majority Black and brown school was very different from their approach to being at this majority Black and brown school. And so, like, I want us to keep that in the back of our mind and hopefully be able to come back to it in a little bit.
I have no idea what you mean. That's crazy.
Wait, what do you mean you don't know what I mean? Go on.
I have no idea how my approach differed from other white people.
Let me okay, well then let me explain. So let me give an example. There were certain teachers who showed up and were like, and I'm just gonna be honest, we recruited heavily from alternative licensing programs, namely Teach for America. And so the premise of Teach for America is someone graduates from undergrad and they don't necessarily like want to go straight into whatever their degree is in, or maybe they want to go to law school, or maybe they think they may want to teach. And so, like, you can sign up for Teach for America. They will give you 2 months-ish of training in the summer, and then you become a teacher. And so a lot of the people who did that were very young, wealthy white people. And so we had a lot of young, wealthy white women teaching these Black and brown kids. And so it became very apparent, because I had worked at a Teach for America institute as well as working in the school that we were in. And I just heard over and over and over again from these white people that, oh my goodness, this is not a school. This is not how I went to school. This is like, why are these kids so disrespectful? Why don't they know how to read? Why don't they want to come to class? Why don't they just listen to me? And Kelly, you did not have that arrogance about you that everything should just work how you want it to work. I feel like you came in with questions. Like when we were in professional development, and I was describing you last night to one of my friends, and I said, so you if you watch the Chelsea take a seat, Chelsea just bust your shit right open. Like she'll just say, that's racist. What do you mean by this? Boom, boom, boom. Kelly makes you discover your own racism. Kelly fucks you up with a question. And so like we would sit in these professional developments and they would go on at length about something that is completely in opposition to what you should do for kids. And then they'll be like, do you have any questions? And Kelly would just ask a simple question that tore asunder their entire presentation. And it was just great because she was calling the shit out. And so that was the difference to me. Like, whereas the other white people in the room were just like, okay, whatever they said, let's do that. And then they would come to me, like I was a grade team lead. So they would come to me and say, well, when we were sitting in this presentation today, I thought that what they told us to do sounded like really terrible to do to kids. And I'd be like, well, did you do it? They're like, yeah. And did it work? No. It's like, so what are you going to do? I'm just going to keep doing it. Like, I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to do what they tell me. And Kelly was not like, no, Kelly's like, I am a board certified behavior analyst. I know what I should be doing. And if you tell me to do something dumb, I'm going to do something smart. Like that was allyship to me. Like, and you were one of few white people in the building doing that. One of few.
Interesting.
So there you go.
That's great.
So, all right, we're going to hop into our next question, and it actually has a clip that goes along with it. So, we're going to pivot a little bit to, I think I want the conversation to go in the direction more of like how you have been experiencing like whiteness as well as what you have learned about being more racially accepting, like having more thoughts about racial justice. I want to hear about how that has translated to like during the Trump presidency, now that we are dealing with like the fallout of the COVID pandemic. And like, because I feel like obviously everyone, if you've not been under a rock, there has been, ever since the murder of George Floyd, there has been such an uprooting of a lot of stuff in the United States. And I personally feel like a lot of the reason why this did not happen before is because white people didn't have to look at race, just like Kelly said earlier. And I will stand by this till the day that I die. The reason that I think George Floyd was the turning point for white people is because you couldn't look away. 8 minutes and 43 seconds of a man being murdered, and you can't turn it off. It was everywhere. And so everywhere you would normally go to convince yourself after seeing something racist that America's not racist, it was just showing you the racist video everywhere. And so I'm going to show you a clip. I'm going to share a clip with everybody where it's a piece of my interview where I'm talking about racism as a metaphor for a fish being in the water. And so like the title of this clip is a fish wet? And that'll make sense once you hear kind of the context of the clip. And then I'm going to have a question for you, Kelly. So this is my first time doing like a screen share during a live. Let's hope I don't botch it. Okay. Okay. If you are in the chat, do you see my YouTube screen? Can somebody just give me yes or no? And let's make sure we got the volume. Boom. Thank you, Jess. All right, so we're going to play this clip. Like I said earlier, racism and anti-racism are not these discrete actions. They're like a lens. They're a mindset.
I've heard people describe before when people talk about culture, they say it's like not the things we do, but it's the water, it's the stuff that's around us, it's the environment. And so if we think about that, if racism, not if racism is, but racism is the water in America. We were founded on racism. We were made to uplift the white male experience, and it worked. Like our country is founded on a system that works really well. It does exactly what it was made to do. It's the water.
Right.
And so like if you were to ask a fish, is it wet? Not to him.
Yeah.
He just thinks that's the world. And so like the question is not like can you be in the middle? It's not like are you racist? It's not are you anti-racist? It's is the fish wet? And the answer is yes and no. Like he's in the water, but to him, there's no such thing as dry. If the
Right.
fish was ever dry, he's dead. So he's not gonna know.
Yeah.
But then he also doesn't know he's wet. And so it takes an outside perspective
Yeah.
to tell him, you know? And so I just think about how because we live in this water, until somebody changes the water in the tank, then we're all always on our way.
Yeah.
You know, we're always working toward anti-racism inside of this racist water.
Sure.
All right. So along those lines of like, is the fish wet? So like considering your experience in the past few years in the United States, what is your take on like white people in America right now? Like to you, is the fish wet? How and you like what have you seen from your white counterpart since Trump presidency with the pandemic, like since we have started more openly discussing race, how does this clip resonate with you? Does it resonate with you? What stands out? What are your thoughts?
So many things. I think so. So part of behavior, I'm bringing this back again because it's a tenet for me. So part of behavior is we don't modify people, we modify the environment. It's the only thing we can. I
Okay.
can't force you, short of taking your hands and make you do anything. But I can modify the environment to make you want to do it. So I think part of the focus on the environment is I tend to look at things when I go into a situation or a room. I'm looking at the environment. I'm looking at what I can alter. So I think I have less biases initially. I definitely will have biases, but I think that just mindset of going into a situation, looking at environmental things, what I can change, that's allows me to kind of think more about this. Man, that's a hard question. It allows me to just go down that path with you to figure out, where I'm getting to, right? That just is the access point, is thinking about the environment. So I know the first time that I think my entire family, other than my older sister, was put into a different fish tank, if you will. Is my older sister went to a predominantly Black college, and we went to her graduation, right? So we're in the stands and they're doing all the ceremonies, and then they get to where they're calling the names. Well, apparently Remington, Black people are very loud in graduations.
Oh, we definitely are. Black graduation is lit.
I think I'm in college at this point. I'm 19 at least. I think 19, 20. And I thought it was great. Like everyone was whooping and yelling, and I was like, yeah, like, well, Brian, yeah, woo. I was just enjoying it. I have never seen my parents so outwardly be racist. And they're such wonderful people, and I love them. But that was the first moment where my parents said, these people, like, and just like looking and eyes rolling, and I was like, oh damn, my family's racist. Like, I think it was the first time that we were forced, probably not in my parents' lives, but my younger sister and I, for sure, like, we had never been forced into a different fish tank where all of a sudden, like I said, I don't walk into a room and say, where are the Black people? I say, why are there so many? That's what I noticed. So that was the first time I think we had, the fish tank changed up. But again, I was just going into it like, this is a cool environment. Like, and then that, certain comments were said or certain, eye rolls or something was huffed and puffed. And I'm like, oh, there's something here. There's something here that I'm not getting. I don't know if I'm not getting it because I'm not seeing it or I'm not supposed to see it or what, or someone's not explained it to me well. So I think, yeah, the whole, I think people, especially of our age range, want to realize they're wet.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Realize what that means.
Say that again.
I don't think they always realize, like, a lot of this whole discovery of race and culture for me is it's a process, right? It's not an event. And I think a lot of white people, because we like everything tied into a little box and neat, want that event. Like, oh, now I'm not racist. Now, oh, someone's opened my eyes and I suddenly know all the things and now I'm not racist. And it's not that, for me, at least. It's a process. And for you to just kind of have that nice little package of, oh, this is what I think about race. I think people stop nowadays in the, oh, I recognize that there's race. I recognize cultural differences. And yeah, I'm kind of okay with them, but I recognize them, so I'm not racist anymore. And that's, I don't think that's the case. I think it's definitely a process, not an event. But yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to realize that they're wet and not knowing what to do about that.
Yeah, I think
they have to think about it if they don't want to.
Yeah, if they don't, and something I've recognized with my close white friends is the ones who, once they realize I'm wet, and being wet, I'm wet all the time. Like, that's a process too. A fish is in the water all the time until it's dead. And so, like, so at first there is a moment of awakening. That is where woke comes from. Before it was gentrified by white people and turned into a liberal whatever thing. There is an awakening. So that is a moment. And then I think from that awakening, you choose what direction you're going to go from there. And I agree with you. I think a lot of white people think waking up is enough. But, like, if you think about your day, like, Kelly, you run an entire facility of behavior services. If you just wake up and you never go to work, does it matter? Like, people up there are like, where's Kelly? Like, I need someone here to do the work. And I think a lot of white people want to wake up and be like, look what I did, guys. Like, where's the celebration? No, you've got to go to work. Like, and it is a process. And so I think, I don't know. I just don't know. My close friends who are choosing to dive into the work, they keep hitting these points where they realize, I've just done this really hard set of things. I've just had this really hard realization. I've had this really hard conversation. And then they'll come to me and they'll tell me about that situation. And they'll be like, whoa, like, it was so crazy. And I'll be like, well, that was 1%. Like, now you've got 99% of the iceberg left. And they're like, so this is literally going to take all my entire life. I'm like, yep. And they're like, white people don't do things that take their entire life. Like, even the thing that I use a lot as an example, and I learned this, I went to Vanderbilt for my undergrad. Coming from a majority Black, poor city, it became very apparent to me that the white children I was meeting, there was some kind of imaginary timeline on their life that I did not understand. Like, everybody was obsessed with being an undergrad for 4 years, going to their master's, going to their doctorate, working from age 26 to 60, and then living on an island. Like they literally, it didn't matter who I met, they all thought their life was going to go just like that. And the moment it didn't go that way, they lost it. Like they were just out, just out to sea. I just don't know what's going on anymore. And I get that same feeling in white people, like on their journey to allyship. They really wanted to be, like they wanted to have some continuity. They wanted to be linear, and it's not that. And they want to be able to have these big moments, like you said, a graduation. After you bust your ass for 4 years in college, you get this huge party. Everybody on Facebook congratulates you, and they send you gifts, and you get to go to this next phase of life. If you do that with racism, people just look at you and keep walking. There's no graduation. There's no party, and I think white people really struggle with that.
Yeah, and it's you phrased it in a certain way, and I can't remember for the life of me, but we like that little package. So someone, if you explain a scenario or a concept to me, and now I have that example as something that I understand, I think a lot of white people take that example and share it, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that can't be all. So if you're going to say, like, what do you think about George Floyd, the whole situation? I can't have a packaged answer. And I think that's what white people want. Because when I was talking to my Black friends about this is what I decided. So this is my answer. When we talk about George Floyd, this is my answer. And it might be good information or have, something going for it. But whatever it is, if you're not having a conversation and just stating points, then it doesn't matter. I don't think it's worth just stating the points, because everybody at this point has heard the points. So when you say, like, start to have a conversation and race comes in, it's almost cute when people are like, oh, here's my thing that I think about that. Ooh, I know a thing about that. And here's my little example. And here it is. And I know about race, and I'm not racist. And I was 100% at that point, like in some point in my life. But just being open and willing to listen to that, because it doesn't have to be in a neat, tidy box. Because when you have neat, tidy boxes and nobody's sharing information, nobody's having a conversation anymore, you're just stating your points. And I think that's part of what's coming out, is that everyone's, again, we're wanting to know that we're wet, we're wanting to be more aware, but you can't just get that packaged statement to say when race comes up and expect to be doing the work.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so good to point out. I really like everything about those comparisons, and just like, I think it's good information for white people to hear, because like I have to have this conversation with clients and people that I'm working with all the time. Like when I go into a school, almost every school hires me for one thing, and I have to tell them what they're actually hiring me for, because they think, and I'll give a good example. We want to increase the number of people of color who enroll in our school. And I have to, have the courage to tell them, from what I've seen of your school, I would not advise any person of color to come here. And then they have to say, why? And then I have to have an answer. And then they have to have a question about that. And then I have to, and like, the most successful clients are the people who engage in that conversation. If someone reaches out to me and says, I want you to give 3 presentations this year about race, gender, class, boom, we'll pay you this. That's not going to work for me. I'm an educator. Like, I'm not just a person who plops a curriculum down in front of a kid and just, pat myself on the back for teaching, for speaking the words. We have to live an experience of change for me to have done my job. And it's difficult fighting that current that you're talking about, because obviously my clientele is wealthy white people, and they expect to buy a packaged, a wrapped package from me. And so, like, I'm kind of having to go against the grain to explain to them how you want the wrong thing. And then I still have to get you to hire me after I tell you that what you think you want is not what you want. And so it's a conundrum.
And the why is such, and it sounds so simple, but the why, I love hearing that from people. And I love asking that to people like, oh, I think this, this, and that. And that's my package thing. Oh, why? Okay, now we're talking. And that's harder.
Yeah.
Something as simple as why do you think that? That's a whole nother level of like, of woke, right? I'm like, oh, okay, why do I think this now? Okay, there's another, and that's where we'd hang up and I'd be like, cool, I'll talk to you in a week, like when I have stuff to go over. But no, I think the why is so good, and it's very clear then, even professionally, like you're talking, if it's like somebody administrator that's going to hire you, if they don't ask why, then they are not going to run any program that you're going to do there. If they just say, well, it's not what I want, then thank you for your time. Like it is not worth implementing anything.
Exactly. I agree. So as we get into our wrap up, I want, and maybe we touched on it in this last part of the conversation, but like, what do you want white people who are choosing to examine whether or not they're wet? Like, what have you learned along your journey that you think other white people need to hear?
I think the idea of it's a process and not an event, and you can't do this work and expect there to be the graduation or the, oh, now I'm woke, or no end, because we're people. And people change and culture changes, and you constantly have to be in a learning state. I go over this with some of my supervisees for ethics. Some people come into our field and go, oh, I'm really good at the practice questions for ethics, so I don't need to study ethics. And I'm like, you better, our field was very punishment based, like it used to be. So if they didn't study ethics and get better at it, we wouldn't be where we are now. So you better look at yourself. Ethics is never something that you just know, because people change and cultures changes and expectations and new, interventions change. So I think it's the same thing with race. People just don't stop. You don't just get it. You don't just get it one day. So you have to be in a constant why state. You have to be in a constant willing to have a conversation. And so when you get those little nice pretty boxes, it really hinders your ability to go forward from that at all. And that might be a great place that you're at for you. And that might be as far as you'll go, in your life, as far as what, if you're a white person choosing to have conversations about race and think about race, then that may be great that you're at that level. But for me, it's just, I'm never going to stop asking why, and I'm never going to stop wanting more information, because I'm never done, because we're human.
Yeah, because we're people. I agree. Well, thank you, Kelly. I want us to give us a little time for Q&A for people in the chat. My other Kelly, my friend Kelly's in the chat. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to hear us talk more about? I've been seeing a lot of people agreeing with the learning state. There was something else Catherine had up here earlier. I like the point that it's not linear. Yes, this journey is definitely not linear. Anybody have any questions they want to hear more about from anything that Kelly and I have said, anything from the video? Shoot. We'll just sit here and give it some time, Kelly. This was good. And I feel like we went off script a lot, which I think was good too.
I don't know what we're talking about, but this is great.
I like it. I really like the way that and it's the reason I wanted to have you on here. Like, you're really good at bringing your experience into the learning. You're talking and you're making a lot of sense and you're making a lot of good points, but it's clear that you have also lived. Like, it's clear to me that you learned what you're talking about. You didn't just go read a book and you're not reciting and regurgitate, well, and such at all 2008, it says that racism is, it's like you actually, like, you're talking from your lived experience. And I think that makes a big difference. And I think it's cool, kind of going back to that question that I wanna, I don't know, maybe we'll have you back on again. I wanna know how you came to care. Because a lot of people with your background still don't give a fuck about black people. Because they don't have to, you know? And so that's my why to you. How did it happen?
Why wouldn't you? Why, especially, I mean, we're in a human services field, right? We're serving people. Why wouldn't you want the best for people? Like, that's an easy, I joke around about like decisions that I make, like for work-based things. And I'm like, if someone questions and has a better idea, great. It's the best for the kid, then it's the best decision for us. But if nobody's coming up with an idea, then my idea is the best. That doesn't mean it's the only idea. It means it's the only one we're doing. So, like, why wouldn't you want that whole kind of collective in a work environment, like a collective making good decisions and coming up with unique things for learners that deserve it? Like, that's just life, isn't it? If you apply that, then why wouldn't I make decisions that are the best for the people around me? Because it's better. I think the more we sort through even like transgender and different cultural issues, it only makes me a better person if those people have more rights and those people are more included and have what they need, not necessarily what everyone else has, but what they need to access what everyone does. So I think it's applicable to life. If I can argue for helping my learners be the best that they can be, and we're going to make decisions that work towards that constantly, then why wouldn't I do that for everyone else in my life? Like, the people around me, I'm going to make decisions that benefit them because it benefits me. That's just logic.
I think that there is something there that and this is funny. I just had this conversation with my friend Zay earlier about how he and we call each other sometimes and we'll say, like, we have a lot of the same hobbies or shared interests, and we're always thinking about, like, whatever everyone else is doing with this hobby, we'll call each other and be like, have you ever thought if we tweak this and this, and now it becomes this whole new thing? Like, we love to innovate stuff, and we both assume that is how everyone operates. I think from my experience, people don't have that foundation that you just named of, it makes sense to serve everyone. I think people say that, but then when you give them a scenario of serving, like if you and your dad were at the graduation, and if you're, your dad's a great person, he loves everybody, he wants to serve everybody, and then you say, well, then, why are you upset about them being loud at the graduation? This is how we serve Black people at a graduation. Then it's going to be like, I mean, I guess, like, I don't want to serve them like this. I don't want, just like when the people were talking about, if y'all are going to protest, can you not do it during the football game? If you're going to have a rally, can you not do it on the highway? It's like, that's the point, is to disrupt life in a way to where you can't turn away. And so I think a lot of people would say they want to serve every learner and want every learner to be the best. But then when it gets to a certain level of inconvenience, they're like, I didn't want it to be this good. I didn't care that much about the learners,
Yeah. And I think when you don't have that nice, pretty package of bundled argument, if I were to call someone out and be like, well, why aren't we celebrating these people in this way? That's when it gets defensive, because they've never been asked why, or they've, conversation, it's just been stating what they think. And so I know I would get super defensive if somebody questioned me why, but I hadn't done my homework and knew what my answer was. So I think that's part of the having the packaged answer is it's even more important for why you shouldn't, because it has to start there. It does, I think. For me, it did, but then it has to move on from there and evolve, because that way you don't get defensive when conversation. I can't name a conversation we've had where I've got defensive or like thought that you were calling me out, because I've been open to the conversation after it. But if I was coming into a conversation with you with wait till Remington, I hit him with this fact about whatever it is, and then you ask me like, oh, well, where did you get that fact? I'm like, nope, sorry, not sorry. That I think that's where a lot of people, if they don't continue doing the work, they just get defensive, and that makes sense for human behavior. You want to avoid those.
I think that's a really good point, and maybe we need to put that in our little bag for whatever this amalgamation of ABA and DEI that we come up with is, because I feel like, let me see if I can remember. You would never believe how often in my head I still try to make sure that I use ABA language correctly. I feel like if there's something we can do to set the occasion to see the behavior of people asking why and being more open to why. What is it called? What's the something stimulus?
Discriminative
stimulus. Like, and I think about when people do it for, like, I should probably start all of my presentations with this discriminative stimulus that if like wherever you just came from was a place that you were allowed to have packaged answers. Here, asking why will be positively reinforced, and having a packaged answer is on extinction. Like,
love it. That'll be that'll be great.
Let's go. Come on. Yeah. BCBA, LBA thing.
Scenario. I love it. I'm there.
All right. Well, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everybody who attended. This was great. I'll be putting out like little clips on Facebook and YouTube. And so, if you see yourself, share it, tag it, do whatever. I just we had a lot of little nuggets in this one. So I'm going to chop this one up and it's going to be all over the place. So thank you again, Kelly. Thank you, everybody in the chat. We appreciate y'all for being here. Give me a follow on IG, Remington_RHC, stands for Remington Holt Consulting. And if you know any predominantly white schools that need some DEI strategy, not just consulting, hit me up. Let me know what's going on. I'm taking new clients. Anything you want to say before we go, Kelly?
No, this was fun. Anytime.
It was great. Oh, this was great. All right. Thank you. Bye, y'all.